Hello all, very good morning. Online students, am I audible? Okay. So in last class, we were talking about E.B. Tylor. Any doubt in that? Or shall we move ahead? Anji. The concept of diffusion. Yeah. So diffusion, वैसे तो ये एक next theory भी है, that is after classical evolutionism, but it means that rather than inventing the culture, we are copying it from somebody. So its inventions happened only once or at some places from where it actually was copied. Okay, तो ये evolutionism के against है, which was saying that every cultural trait was independently invented in every society. तो ऐसा नहीं होता है. We also borrow some cultural traits and that is ignored यहाँ पे इस theory. Anything else? Okay. So let's talk about the second scholar, Louis Henry Morgan. Now, E.B. Tylor is said to be the founding father of British anthropology, whereas Louis Henry Morgan was an American anthropologist. He, along with another scholar that we'll be reading in the next theory, that is Franz Boas, is said to be the founding father of American anthropology. Okay, so Louis Henry Morgan, just in order to understand his contribution to this theory, let's understand his story, what and in what background that he gave these kind of concepts. Here, what actually happened, that he was a lawyer by graduation. Okay, and he started practicing his trade, that is law. But in 1842, America actually experienced a kind of economic depression, and due to which the cases that was assigned to him was not that significant. इसका खर्चा नहीं निकल रहा. Now what he did in 1842, he actually formed a social club called as Order of Gordian Knot. Now, this social club was mainly designed to get some kind of passive income. Okay? Because in this club, Order of Gordian Knot, what actually did the members of the club, what they did, they used to discuss some Greco-Roman myths. Okay, so some myth of Greek civilization, Roman civilization, they used to discuss it. And they were trying to find out the similarities of these myths along with the tribes of America. So that was some kind of a discussion that they used to do. And he used to write the journal, some kind of letter, some kind of articles discussing the details of the Greco-Roman myths. Okay, later on, this club was renamed as Grand Order of Iroquois. Now, what is Iroquois? Iroquois is a collective name of American Indians living in the northwest corner of North America. That is USA के northwest corner में Canada America border पे. These tribes that they live collectively, they are called as Iroquois. So they are a group of 6 tribes. You don't need to remember the name like Mohawk, Oneida, Seneca, Tuscarora, and so on and so forth. ये tribes के नाम है वहां पे, and they are collectively called as Iroquois. Now, initially they were comparing the Greco-Roman myths with American Indian myths. Later on, they shifted their focus solely upon the study of the lifestyle of these tribes. Okay, and यहाँ पे ये क्या करते थे, that they used to call some tribal people in order to discuss their culture, their problems, and so on and so forth. In this entire journey, what actually happened, there was a person who later on turned out to be friend of Morgan, that is L.E. Parker. He was also a lawyer, coincidentally, and he was a Seneca Indian. Morgan called him, कि भाई, if you're free, if you're comfortable, just come to my place, come to this club and discuss about your culture, what kind of culture that you follow, what is the religious belief that you have, and all such kind of things. He came there. Instead of discussing the culture, what he discussed was the problem faced by these tribal people. Problem as if our land being encroached by the government, our resources basically taken away, snatched away from us, and various other atrocities that were committed upon them. And Morgan के पास वैसे भी job नहीं थी. The work was not good. He was not getting much cases. So then he decided, okay, I will be fighting the cases for them. I'll fight or I'll represent them in the legal fraternity or in the court, and will try to ensure that they get their due rights. Okay. And that is how he decided, with the help of Ellie Parker, to have a knowledge about Iroquois. क्योंकि उनके लिए अगर केस फाइट करना है तो then he should have a first hand knowledge of Iroquois. So what he did, he organized a study of Iroquois. उस एरिया में गए, नॉर्थ वेस्ट अमेरिका, and he started to interact with the Iroquois tribes one after the other. And this Ellie Parker, he acted as a translator. कि जो भी ये सवाल पूछते इंटरव्यू में, Ellie Parker would translate what the answers was given by the tribes. Okay. And whatever he recorded, means he talked about religion, he talked about culture, he talked about art, family, kinship, marriage, everything he recorded and was compiled and published in the form of a book called as League of Iroquois. And this was the first publication by Morgan. And it is said to be the first scientific account of American tribe in the history of anthropology, first scientific account, because it was created by direct interaction with the Iroquois tribes by Morgan. Okay. So in this book, League of Iroquois, one thing that Morgan actually found very peculiar and very specific, and that he recorded, is what he calls as the kinship terminology. Now, what is this kinship terminology? Kinship means relations, okay, हमारे रिश्तेदार वगैरह, and terminology is how we call these relatives, the name that we give to our relatives, the name with which we call our relatives. That is kinship terminology. He found that in this society, the father and father's brother is called by the same name. पापा और चाचा को सेम नाम से बुलाते. That means they are equivalently referred to as father only. And the same was the case with mother and mother's sister. They were called by the same name. And he found it relatively very strange, because normal societies में ऐसा नहीं होता. The mother sister is called by a different name than mother, and father brother are called by the different name rather than just called by father. And here, the lineage or descent, the descent is traced through mother. Descent traced through mother means, for example, we are a patrilineal society. We trace our descent from our father. We actually attach our father's name or father's surname behind our name. Okay. And our mothers also would have changed their surname post-marriage. That's a very common practice in our society, because we are a patrilineal society, tracing the descent from father's side. Okay. And that's why there is a very common dialogue कि मतलब किस मेरे रगों में उनका खून दौड़ रहा है. That is because we are tracing our descent from father side. But here it was different. They're tracing their descent not from the father side, but from the mother side, which was completely different from what is being practiced in the American society. It is what is called as matrilineage. Okay. So he recorded all of this, and then yes, kinship means relatives. Okay, or relations जो हमारे होते हैं, रिश्तेदार. So After recording and publishing this book, League of Iroquois, he was more or less for a rest, मतलब kind of थोड़ा सा शांत हो गए. But one day he came across another tribe living in the uh, other side of America, that is Ojibwa tribes. Okay, and he found that this Ojibwas, they also have a similar kind of kinship terminology. That is, father and father's brother are called by the same name, mothers and mother's sister are called by the same name, descent being traced by mother's side. So that actually intrigued him, and he wanted to conduct a kind of scientific study on this kinship terminology all across the world, a kind of global inquiry he wanted to do. So what he did, he prepared a questionnaire. Questionnaire means a list of questions having approximately 200 questions. And he sent this questionnaire all across the world to various diplomatic channels, diplomats, or say various missionaries, various travelers, and various administrators all across the world, and asked them कि आपके आसपास जो भी society है, just get this questionnaire filled and get respond back. So many of the people, he actually sent it to more than 600 locations, but many of the people did not took it very seriously. He got approximately 139 response back. And based on this 139 responses, what he did, he classified kinship terminology into two categories. One is called as classificatory, and the second is called as descriptive. Okay, 139 लोगों ने रिप्लाई किया, 139 सोसाइटीज का रिस्पॉन्स था, and based on that he divided these societies into two categories having two different types of kinship terminology. One is classificatory and the second being the descriptive kind of terminology. In classificatory also he divided into three categories. One is Ganawanian, second is Malayan, and the third is Turanian. I'll discuss what are these. And descriptive also, he divided into three categories: Semitic, Aryan, and Uralian. Malayan and Turanian. ये ठीक है? ये नहीं दिख रहा ना आपको? So is it okay now? Okay. So what are these two types of kinship terminology? One is classificatory. He says that here there is a clubbing of relatives. Clubbing of relatives as if that multiple relatives can be called by the same name. That is classificatory. Classify कर दे रहे हैं और category में put कर दिया और एक category से multiple लोगों को बुलाया जा रहा है. और specifically speaking, lineal and collateral relatives may be called by same name. Now, what is lineal and collateral? Collateral means moving sidewards and lineal means moving vertical. So vertical as if कि मेरे lineal की बात करें तो अगर मैं अपने father side से जाऊं तो my father, my grandfather, his father and so on and so forth. And अगर अपनी mother side से जाऊं तो me, my mother, my grandmother and then her mother and so on and so forth. Means एक generation ऊपर जा रहे हैं, that is lineal, moving vertically. Now laterally means moving sidewards. So lateral relatives कौन होंगे मेरे? Me, my uncle, my uncle's wife, और यहाँ से मेरे मामा, मेरी मौसी, they are all collateral relatives or lateral relatives, while lineal will be moving generations, from one generation to another to next generation, and vertical आप अपने relations को देखोगे, that will be lineal relatives. Okay, now here what was happening, that in classificatory terminology, lineal and collateral relatives may be called by the same name. For example, father, that is a lineal relative, and father's brother, that is a lateral relative, will be called by the same name. Or mother, lineal relative, and mother's sister will be called by the same name. That is, lineal and collateral will be called and clubbed together and called by the same name. That is classificatory. In descriptive, what actually happens? Lineal and collateral relatives have distinct name. Are you getting this? Lineal means father का अलग नाम होगा, father brother का अलग नाम होगा. जैसे हम बोलते हैं अपने father के लिए पापा and uncle, चाचा और ताया जी and all. So father having a distinct name and lateral relative having a distinct name, or brother and cousin. Okay, so that is descriptive terminology. Now how is it related to evolutionism? He says that classificatory terminology is a feature of uncivilized society, whereas a descriptive terminology is a feature of civilized society. Okay. And he says that classificatory terminology refers to the condition of humans living in a manner akin to animals, similar to animals. That is, promiscuous sex and indeterminate parentage. Promiscuous sex and indeterminate parentage means that there is no sexual morality between them or in them. And that's why anybody is mating with anyone. And due to this random matings that is happening and no sexual morality, parentage is non-determinable. Okay, आप determine नहीं कर सकते कौन किसका बच्चा है. And that's why a boy or a girl would collectively call a group of person, maybe a group of women as mother, and a group of men as collectively as father. That's why there is a classificatory kind of terminology. Just like animals randomly breed and they do not actually stay together to take care of the babies and all. In the same way, these humans, they do not have any kind of sexual morality. And that's why they are engaged in promiscuous sexuality, and which leads to indeterminate parentage. That is classificatory terminology. Whereas descriptive terminology is present in a civilized society where there is a well-defined sexual morality and monogamous or polygynous relationship, due to which there is a clear-cut parentage present. Okay, so that is the two types of society: classificatory associated with uncivilized society and descriptive terminology associated with civilized society. And then he says classificatory terminology will evolve to descriptive terminology as the society evolves, as the culture changes. Classificatory terminology will evolve to descriptive. Now, he was asked why there will be a shift in kinship terminology. What is the reason for it? Can you give any guesses? Rise of? Yes, आपने पढ़ा ही होगा. So he says that there are two major reasons. One is rise of private property. Says that कि जब ये society थी, that is uncivilized society, so they are living like hunter-gatherers, and hunter-gatherers, they do not have any kind of private property. Now there is nothing available to them that can be passed on to the next generation, and that's why there is no incentive to identify who is whose child. Okay, किसको क्या, क्योंकि कोई फादर अपने बच्चे को कुछ पास ऑन नहीं कर सकता, कोई मदर अपने बच्चे को कुछ प्राइवेट प्रॉपर्टी पास नहीं कर सकती. But as we shifted towards agriculture, there will be surplus, and this surplus is something extra than what I require, and has to be passed on from one generation to another, which actually require determinable parentage. And that is why the descriptive terminology will arise that will tell who exactly is the son or successor of a couple. And जैसे जैसे private property rise करेगी, वैसे वैसे society will actually create terminology that will clearly depict who is the successor of whom. And that is where the shift will happen from classificatory terminology to descriptive terminology. जब पहले किसी के पास कुछ है ही नहीं देने के लिए, तो why to create such kind of terminology to create obligations or nothing like that? कुछ है ही नहीं देने के लिए. But जब है, तो then it is necessary to identify who is the son of whom, and that's how certain rights, certain obligations, certain duties can be passed on to the next generation. Okay. Second thing, he suggested that it's a relatively weak reason. Private property is one of the very important reason, rise of private property. The second reason that he suggested is that communal wives used to live with communal husband. That means a group of men used to live with a group of women. Okay. And communal wife means everybody was married to everyone else. That means there was no sexual morality. So अगर 5 लोग हैं, 5 boys हैं, 5 girls हैं, they have collectively married with each other. So any of the boy can mate with any of the girl, and vice versa. Any of the girl can mate with any of the boy. So they are collective husband and wife. Now in such cases, gradually what happened, these communal marriages were there, and when these communal groups were attacked by the outsider, so communal men used to sacrifice their lives or to risk their lives in order to protect their wives from the outsider. Okay. And when it happened, it gradually started to create a bond between the men and women, because a man is a kind of risking his life to protect the woman. That would have kind of created a kind of bond between men and women, which eventually led to monogamous or single bond pairs. जहाँ पे a man would have impressed the other woman by his valor, by his courage. And that is how the institution of marriage would have actually been created. जब 5 boys and girls, they used to live together. Gradually, जब एक boy या कुछ boys will risk their life to protect the woman, that is the bond between the men and women would have been created, and the institution of marriage was created. Okay. And that is where single pair marriages would have eventually resulted in. जिससे आपकी kinship terminology भी change हो जाएगी. But the major reason again is this rise of private property, because it requires a clear-cut lineage to identify who will be inheriting the property of a man or a woman, or certain obligations, certain duties कि बाप की चिता को आग कौन लगाएगा, और XYZ कोई भी बहुत सारी duties हैं, who will be doing that. It's basically when it is clear that who is the son of whom. Okay. Now there is a transition phase also, he says, that will happen. देखो, initially it is indeterminate, मतलब because nobody wants to actually identify. But जैसे जैसे private property rise करेगी, then what would be the type of lineage that would come? It will be matrilineage, because if a woman is having sexual relationship with multiple men and vice versa, in that case, the first thing that can be clearly determined is who is the mother of the child, isn't it? It is very difficult to determine who is the father of the child if the woman is having sexual relationship with multiple men. But it is for sure clear that who has given birth to that child. The mother is very clear. And that's why when we will be moving from this indeterminate parentage to a clear-cut lineage, the first lineage that would come will be matrilineage, because it is easy to determine who the mother is. And gradually, it would shift towards patrilineage जैसे जैसे monogamous relationships आएंगे. Okay, and we'll see the reason for shift from matri to patri as per Morgan. So this is the idea that he gave, that 2 types of kinship terminology: classificatory, which is a symbol of uncivilized society, and descriptive, which is a symbol of civilized society. And classificatory would evolve to descriptive with the rise of private property. And that is the basic idea, the first idea, which was given by Morgan. Yes, you were asking something. Communal का मतलब होता है groups. Okay. So a group of men, usually the brothers, would marry a group of women, that is the sisters. Okay. Now what actually happens कि ये group में रह रहे हैं, and then it might happen that the other group might attack the woman. Okay, so आप एक बहुत फेमस कहावत है और ये भी कहते हैं, और इनफैक्ट it's very well established notion in anthropology that any fight that has happened in the world is because of three things: Zar, Joru, or Jameen. Okay, Zameen was not that important in the ancient times or prehistoric time because there were less population and there was a lot of land available to each one of them. But another thing that is responsible, wealth जैसी भी कोई चीज important नहीं थी. Anything that was important for the continuity of the group was women, because these women will help in progenesis. That is, continuity of the group will happen only when there are enough women to give birth to the children, and hence the group will continue. Okay, so that's why usually the fight initially was to capture the women. So when communal men, communal women, they used to live together. So another group might attack this group to capture the women in order to ensure that these women are available for progenesis and the group, their group continues. And in this capture, in this act of capture, the other group might defend their own women. And in the act of defense, the woman might get impressed by the men's act, men's courage. And that would have created a strong bond between men and women, which he believes is the reason for rise of institution of marriage. Okay. So this is the first idea, kinship terminology. Just write this, and then we'll discuss other thing. One thing I forgot, this entire kinship terminology wala jo idea hai, that was given in a book called as System of Consanguinity and Affinity in the Human Family. Now, these two words might seem something strange to you, consanguinity and affinity. Consanguinity is derived from two words, con and sanguine. Con means same and sanguine means blood. So consanguine means blood relatives. Okay, the relatives or people who share blood. Whereas affinity means love. Okay, so those relatives that are created by marriage, they are called as affines or affinity. So जैसे कि husband and wife, they are affines. Whereas father and son, they are consanguine, blood relative. Okay, so consanguine means sharing the blood, affine means love. Okay. Yes. Sorry. Descriptive patrilineal है या matrilineal है? Initially it will be matri and then move to patrilineal. Yes. हाँ, because hunting gathering करते थे पहले. And hunting gathering में there was no surplus. Hand to mouth survival है. Whatever that is hunted, that will be consumed that very day itself. And that's why there is nothing surplus. But I have discussed this in the very first class. The idea of surplus actually is responsible for hierarchies in the society and all. And where does this surplus come from? When we shifted from hunting gathering to agriculture. Okay, agriculture mein there was surplus crops, and that surplus crops can be used to make people work for them. So ye surplus even after I consume will be available to me, and that has to be passed to somebody. Ab is surplus se main use kar sakta hu or land or labor buy karna, and then that will generate other surplus, and that is a private property. So next one, ancient society. He wrote a book, and that is the classical literature, that is Magnum Opus for Morgan. And in this ancient society, he has actually clearly established his theory of evolutionism. Okay, and what he says, he begins this book with a statement that man started his journey at the bottom of a ladder. मतलब एक किसी सीढ़ी के एकदम सबसे निचले पायदान से उसने शुरू किया, and he climbed up the ladder with excessive or absorption of knowledge of science or experimental knowledge. So his journey of climbing upwards the ladder or rising up over in the ladder was mainly because of his knowledge. And this knowledge, he says, actually increase the chances of survival. Based on which he makes a statement saying that any of the society in the world can be ranked based on this knowledge, very similar to the statement that was given by the Tyler. And he says that this ranking can be done by using four major criteria. That is, ranking of societies into savagery, barbarism, or civilization can be done based on four major criteria. And these four major criteria are: first, idea of technology. कितनी टेक्नोलॉजिकल डेवलपमेंट हुई है उसके बेसिस पे उनको रैंक किया जा सकता है. सेकंड, idea of government. What kind of government they have, what kind of social organization, political organization they have, based on which their evolutionary rank can be decided. Then third is idea of family. And fourth is idea of property. So these are the four major criteria as per Morgan to identify the relative rank of a particular society. ये कितनी developed है और कितनी ज़्यादा evolve हो चुकी है. He says that the technology can be the best criteria. Best criteria as if not the sole criteria, but it is one of the best or one of the most reliable criteria to identify the evolutionary rank of a society, because it is very clear to establish the chronological sequence of a technology. मतलब बाकी cases में थोड़ा chronological sequence establish करने में there can be certain doubts, but we cannot say that with respect to technology. We can definitely say the wheel would have been invented first before the steam engine would have come, or say stone tools would have been invented first before the metal tools and before the automatic machines would have come up, isn't it? Or cycles would have been invented first before car would have come, or say normal rifle would have been created first before the automatic guns would have come up. Okay, so there is a clear-cut sequence in respect to the technology. We can clearly establish chronological sequence of it, and that's why the technological aspect can become the best mechanism or one of the most important mechanism to clearly establish the evolutionary sequence of a particular culture. Right? So based on this first criteria, he divided or he classified the societies all across the world in 7 stages of evolutionary development. तो 3 stages को तो टाइलर ने बताया कि savagery, barbarism, civilization. What he did, he further elaborated it and he divided them into 7 major stages. They are called as lower savagery, middle savagery, upper savagery. Then lower barbarism, middle barbarism, and upper barbarism. And finally, civilization. Not just this, he talks about the criteria or the technology that should be the representative of these respective stages. For example, in case of lower savagery, he says that speech and subsistence on forests would be the technology that will be available to the people. Okay, then middle savagery, availability of fishing and fire. Then in upper savagery, it is development of bow and arrow. Then in the lower barbarism, the technology of pottery. Then in middle barbarism, domestication of animals and plants. Upper barbarism, smelting of iron or smelting of metals. And last, in civilization, multiple technologies would come like weights, mathematics, written language with intensive agriculture. Okay, so he represented these stages with a particular kind of technology. Not just this, what he did, he actually collected a lot of travelogues or missionaries' account, and he wanted to identify which of the society in the world actually are in these stages of development. Okay, so based on his data, what he suggested that in the stage of lower savagery, there is नो लिविंग सोसाइटी, मतलब हर सोसाइटी इस स्टेज को तो क्रॉस कर चुकी है. No current society is living in this stage of lower savagery all over the world. Every society has passed at least इतनी क्लास तो पास हो गए. Then the middle savagery, he called people living in a island in the southern Pacific region, that is Polynesian. So they are called as the ones who are living in the stage of middle savagery. कि मतलब उनकी जो टेक्नोलॉजी है, they basically depend upon basic use of fire, they actually depend upon fishing and all. The kind of tool and technology that they have is very similar to the people of middle savagery. Then in upper savagery, he called American Indians of subarctic living in this stage. Okay. Then in lower barbarism, American Indians of Missouri region. In middle barbarism, there is again American Indians which are called as Pueblo Indians. Southwest America के साइड पे रहते हैं नीचे, New Mexico region, that is Pueblo Indians. Then in upper barbarism, he says Italian tribes of Rome, they are in the stage of upper barbarism. And finally, civilization, किसको बोलेगा वो? अपनी society को. They are all civilization, European society, American society, they all are part of civilization. Okay, Italian tribes of Rome. So this is the idea that he suggested कि हर society को technologically basis पे आप classify कर सकते हो, giving them the ranks on the evolutionary scale. And these are the respective technology that he talks about, and then respective societies in this category that is basically being mentioned by Morgan. कुछ लोगों को ये दिख नहीं रहा होगा. Indians of Missouri in lower barbarism, then Pueblo Indians, subarctic region. Indians of Missouri, then Pueblo Indians, then Italian tribes of Rome, and then US, Europe, and all. They were part of. Polynesia is an island, group of island in the southern Australia के just ऊपर वाले साइड पे आपको Polynesian islands दिख जाएंगे. Okay. He then makes a statement saying that subsequent success in art of subsistence is the reason why this technology will lead to evolution. इसका मतलब क्या है? Subsistence का मतलब होता है कि ensuring the availability of food. तो हर सोसाइटी का फूड अवेलेबिलिटी के लेके एक मैकेनिज्म है. आप और हम सब जो भी कर रहे हैं, ओके, एज पर एंथ्रोपोलॉजी, इट इज only and only to ensure our survival. And how that survival will be there? दो तरीके से we can survive. One, by ensuring that we live. Okay, पहला खुद जिंदा रहना है. And second, by ensuring that we procreate. We are able to give birth to children and they survive. They again go give birth to the children, and that is how we survive. Okay, that is the एंटायर मोटिव ऑफ एनी स्पीसीज लिविंग ऑन अर्थ, ये आईएएस आईपीएस ये सब कुछ आप बस इसीलिए कर रहे हो बिकॉज यू वांट टू सर्वाइव इन दिस कॉम्पिटिटिव वर्ल्ड, एंड दैट इज सर्वाइवल विल बी बिकॉज ऑफ माई आई लिविंग देयर, एंड ऑल्सो आई हैव द कैपेसिटी टू प्रोक्रिएट, एंड इन दोनों केसेस में आई रिक्वायर रिसोर्सेज, रिसोर्सेज एज इफ वट एवर यू आर डूइंग, पावर वगैरह वगैरह सब कुछ, ये सब कुछ अल्टीमेटली क्या इंश्योर करेगा कि आप जिंदा रहो, आपके पास खाने को हो, एंड आप बच्चे पैदा कर सको, और बच्चे पैदा करने के बाद उनको भी प्रोटेक्ट कर सको टिल द एज ऑफ रिप्रोडक्शन। द अल्टीमेट गोल यही है, देश की सेवा, ये सब चीजें तो हमने फिलोसफीज क्रिएट की हैं, बट अल्टीमेट गोल इज दिस ओनली, एंड दैट्स व्हाई you were working somewhere in the factories or industries, you find that that will be a threat to my survival someday or somewhere. Maybe COVID aa gaya hoga, maybe recession might have come, and there was a mass laying off that might have happened, and you decided that ye to kabhi bhi ho jayega, to fir ek aisi naukri chahiye jo permanent rahe. Okay, situation should be anything, but that job should be permanent. Why? Because ultimately it's actually is affecting my survival, and also survival, that is it will be affecting my children or something like that. Okay, and that is the ultimate goal for every species. Humans are no different, anthropologically speaking. ठीक है, तो हम लोग को अपने आप को सुपीरियर बनाने के लिए खुद के लिए फिलोसफीज बनानी पड़ी, और जिसकी वजह से हम लोग इस तरीके से सोचते हैं. ओके, नाउ यस, सॉरी, आर द रोमन पीपल, अरे जिप्सीज, ओके, यस यस, जिप्सीज की बात करते हैं. ओके, so he says that every technological development that was to ensure success in art of subsistence, हर नई टेक्नोलॉजी actually ensured that we do not have to worry about the food, or at least it actually improved our condition with respect to availability of the food than the previous situation, than the previous condition. So basically here, subsistence on forest, then moving towards fishing and fire, more security to us, more food to us, then bow and arrow, better hunting capabilities, and then pottery making and all. Maybe ये थोड़ा सा यहाँ पे थोड़ा confusion आ जाता है, because he said pottery first and then domestication of animal. Actually it should have been उल्टा, but we cannot, we'll see this in the criticism, कि जब आप domesticate करोगे animals को, तब आपको कुछ store करने के लिए potteries की जरूरत पड़ेगी. But he suggested that first came pottery and then came domestication of animals and plants, and then everything, that is melting of iron and all, it actually improved our ability to have food and survive. That is, it improved our art of subsistence, and this is the only reason that any society could actually progress. And that is why he says that technology can be one of the greatest marker of evolutionary scale of any of the society or culture. कि जिस तरीके की टेक्नोलॉजी यूज करें, that we basically are not worried about the food, or we basically have immense amount of surplus food because of the kind of technology that we are using, compared to the hand to mouth survival of the tribes living in the forest. Okay, so technology से progress आया, and that improved our art of subsistence. Okay, so this is the basic idea, or the first idea that he gave in the book Ancient Society, that is the idea of technology and how it led to evolution of the societies or culture. Now the second criteria that he gave, idea of government. Okay, how idea of government can also be a test to identify the success or progress of a particular culture or society. Now what he is saying is that there are two sets of government. One that is called as societas, and the second is called as civitas. Now he's just saying that कि किसी भी टाइप की सोसाइटी को इन दोनों कैटेगरी में डिवाइड कर सकते हैं, दैट पॉलिटिकल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन दैट दे विल बी हैविंग. नाउ व्हाट इज सोसाइटास? ही सेज दैट दीस आर दोज पॉलिटिकल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन वेयर द अफेयर्स आर डिपेंडेंट और कंट्रोल्ड बाय किन रिलेशंस. रिश्तेदारी ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है कि आप किसके क्या लगते हो, उसके बेसिस पे आपके अफेयर्स को कंट्रोल किया जाएगा. Okay, so you belong to so and so family, you belong to so and so gotra, you belong to so and so caste. That will actually determine the affairs of the person. Okay, or that will actually determine what kind of authority he will have, or what kind of power he is going to have. So that is, kin relationships determine the political affairs. रिश्तेदारी ज्यादा important है. So it's usually possible in a very small society, okay, with limited number of members, wherein everybody is related more or less to each other. Okay, so वहां पे it's easy that certain one family or multiple families actually are taking care of the affairs of the society. तो कोई भी दिक्कत आती है तो then there is a head of the family or multiple head of the family, they will come together, they will take the decision and they will finally inform everyone. This is the societas. But he says that as the society grows up, then the number of the people in those societies will be very much big, and thereby the affairs cannot be maintained by kin relations. And here it will lead to a kind of society called as civitas, or political organization called as civitas, wherein the affairs, political affairs, will be governed by territorial relations. What is this territorial relation? That means कि हर लैंड का एक रूल होगा एंड आपके अफेयर्स डिटरमाइन किए जाएंगे आप किस लैंड पे खड़े हो. ओके, irrespective of who you are, whose family you belong to, or whose relative you are, doesn't matter, but there is a law of the land and everybody has to follow that law of the land. Okay, so for example, like India, so there is a constitution, the law of the land, and everybody, irrespective of whosoever he or she is, has to follow that law of the land. Okay, that is what is called as civitas, and that is when the society becomes large enough, very big enough, there it becomes very difficult to be managed by kin relations. And hereby, the society will move towards, or the political organization will move from societas to civitas. Okay, so that is the general idea that he suggested. And in this sequence of evolution, he suggested that the politics will evolve from promiscuous horde. Now, what is this promiscuous horde? Horde means झुंड, undifferentiated mass of people. That is what is called as horde. भीड़ जिसको कहते हैं. So भीड़ is nothing but an undifferentiated mass of people. Everybody is equally powerful or equally powerless. You can say that. कोई उसमें कोई head नहीं, कोई leader नहीं, कोई command नहीं. Nothing of that sort is there. That is, initially people were like this only. They used to live like undifferentiated mass of people with no leader, no rules, no norms, nothing of that sort. Everybody had equal voice in the activities of the group. And if they do not agree, they will just divide the group and move in different direction. 10 लोगों का ग्रुप है, 5 लोग किसी बात पे तैयार हैं, किसी पे नहीं तैयार हैं, तो they'll just divide and they'll move in another direction. और लैंड बहुत ज्यादा था, तो कोई टेंशन नहीं थी, अपना अपना जाएंगे, अपना अपना घूमेंगे, कोई दिक्कत नहीं. Okay, that is what is promiscuous horde. Gradually, what happened? The society divided, or society was controlled by what is called as gentes. Now, gentes is simply what is called as lineage. इसको कहते हैं वंश. Okay, so lineage means tracing descent from a person who is known to have existed. मतलब for example, if somebody says, or if I say कि मैं महाराजा रंजीत सिंह का वंशज हूं, or some Maratha might say that कि मैं छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज का वंशज हूं. So that means we know that कि so and so person used to exist some hundreds of years ago. And that is what is called as lineage. Clear cut lineage can be established. कि आप parentage, आप पूरी family chart बता सकते हो कि 10 generation पहले, 15 generation पहले so and so person used to exist. And I come from that family only. तो जैसे कि बहुत सारे royal families हैं, ज्योतिरादित्य सिंधिया, you must have heard about him. So he is also tracing the lineage from certain royal kingdoms, and he has a clear-cut name that जिनसे वो descent trace करें. That is what is called as lineage. Tracing descent from a person who is known to have existed. आपको पता है इतने साल पहले वो आदमी exist करता था. Okay. Then he says that the society धीरे-धीरे बड़ी होती गई, बहुत सारी families आने लगी. And in that case, when the families or the number of families in the society became bigger, it is very difficult to trace the descent from a single person. लेकिन अब ग्रुप को यूनाइट करना है तो क्या किया जाए? तो उन्होंने कुछ assumed ancestor मान लिए, जैसे सूर्यवंशी, चंद्रवंशी. So that is an assumed ancestor. Are you getting this? So that is, then they will call oneself belonging to what is called as a clan, that is tracing descent from a person who is believed to have existed, not known to have existed. We do not know when did he exist, or how did he look, or how many years he actually was, how many years before he used to live or not. So it's an assumed ancestor, a mythical ancestor. But what actually happens, that all of us, since we are tracing the descent from that assumed ancestor, we all act as relative. एंड जिससे एक सोसाइटी जो थोड़ी बड़ी भी हो जाएगी, मान लो 10 फैमिली हैं, तो हम समझ सकते हैं कि 3-4 जनरेशन पहले दे माइट हैव एग्जिस्टेड फ्रॉम ए, और दे माइट हैव कम फ्रॉम अ सिंगल फैमिली ओनली. Okay, for example, from the city that I come from, what happened is there is a colony called as Sardar colony, where we actually, all the Sikh of that city actually live there. अब वो जो पूरी सरदार कॉलोनी है, it was 70 years back, two brothers bought the entire land of that Sardar colony, approximately 10 to 12 acres of land. Okay, and these two brothers had the family, and ये family diverge करते करते करते, the entire population of this Sardar colony, all the 50 families that are living there right now, they are the descendants of these two brothers only. Okay, so everyone living in this colony is somehow related to the other, and we all actually trace the descent from the father of these two brothers who actually bought the land and from whom we have descended. Okay, clear cut? But imagine if the families become 500 or 2000, then it becomes very difficult. Okay, because अब बहुत सारे दूर दूर से, means somebody might have been married to some other place, then she comes with her own family and so on and so forth, and then it becomes difficult to actually trace the descent from those two brothers only, right? And the number is too big. But in order to unite them, what we do is we assume an ancestor. Okay, कोई एक ancestor को assume कर लेते कि that we might be descendants of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, or maybe some, जैसे कि mythological stories में होता था सूर्यवंशी हैं, तो सब बोलते थे कि सूर्य के descendants हैं या चंद्रवंशी हैं, तो ये चंद्र के चांद के descendants हैं. So for example, जो चंद्रवंशी होते थे वो जैसे रामचंद्र जी कहते थे, तो उनके पीछे वो चंद्रवंशी का मीन्स टैग लग जाता था. आर यू गेटिंग दिस? सो दैट इज assumed ancestor, and this is what is called as clan. But again, this assumed ancestorship will bring a kind of solidarity among the people. Okay, because they assume that although the clear-cut relationship cannot be pronounced, yet we belong to the same family line. Clear-cut नहीं establish कर सकते, but है तो. And gradually, what will happen? The society will become more and more bigger. People speaking, so people with different families, different relations, and वो सब आते लग जाएंगे. Then what happens? The clan will evolve to what is called as tribes. Here the society is very big, and it's very difficult to actually assume a single ancestor also. Okay, and then what unites this society is maybe occupation of a particular land and a specific language. ठीक है, वो लोग एक ही लैंड, एक पर्टिकुलर टेरिटरी को ऑक्यूपाई कर रहे हैं, and they speak almost the similar language, and maybe may have certain shared cultural aspects. एक जैसे कल्चर हैं, and that is how, so tribes will come up as a form of political organization, in which there will be some tribal chief or tribal head who will be managing the affairs of the tribes. Okay, but अब society और बड़ी होगी, धीरे धीरे populations will increase, and in that scenario, as the society becomes bigger, the population increases, we will shift towards state kind of political organization. And here it is more formal as if there will be a bureaucratic setup, okay, in which there will be a delegation of power, and then there will be a standing army who will be there to assist the ruler, and so on and so forth. So state-like organization would come up. And here, the entire land, entire territory of the state will be governed by same law. What unites the people in the state is they are governed by the same law. We are different in our behavior, our culture, our language, our attire, our food, our religion. region that we belong to. But what unites us today, the most foremost factor that unites us is the Constitution of India. We all have to abide by the Constitution of India and law of the land. That unites us. And that's why from north to south, that is Kashmir to Kanyakumari and from Gujarat to Arunachal, basically everybody is united by this single law of the land. Irrespective of having different culture, language, attire, food, religion, whatever it is, isn't it? So this is how he says the societies or the political organization of the society will actually proceed from an undifferentiated mass of people to a complex political organization with delegated power, legislative, judiciary, executives, and then bureaucracies, police force, standing army, taxation power, and so on and so forth. And ये कैसे कैसे हो रहा है? जैसे जैसे population will actually rise up. So these, that is from promiscuous horde to tribe, they all represent societas. Tribe is more like a transition phase from societas to civitas, whereas the state represents the civitas, territorial relationship. Irrespective of आप किसके रिश्तेदार हो, कुछ हो, doesn't matter. Territorial relationship, that is the complicated political organization that will happen. So this is how the political organization will evolve. And this is how you can actually identify the evolutionary progress of a particular culture also. कि इनमें किस टाइप की political organization है, whether they are living like promiscuous horde, or whether they are having lineage form of government, whether they are having clan form of government, or whether they are having a tribal form of political organization, or finally whether they have a well developed state like system. इसके basis पे आप organize rank कर सकते हो whether they are less evolved or more evolved. Are you getting this? Yes or no? Promiscuous horde. Horde means undifferentiated mass of people. एक झुंड है लोगों का, कि मतलब उनमें कोई डिफरेंस नहीं है, सब कोई एक जैसा है, सबको उतनी अथॉरिटी. तो नॉर्मली क्या होता है कि जब भीड़ में कोई डिसीजन लेना होता है तो एवरीबडी विल बी स्पीकिंग आउट. जैसे कई बार आवर पार्लियामेंट आल्सो बिहेव्स लाइक ए प्रोमिस्कुअस होर्ड. And it's very difficult to actually take up a call because everybody is shouting whatever they want and nobody is actually listening to the logic. So that is undifferentiated mass of people, जहां पे किसी की कोई वॉइस नहीं है, कोई स्पेसिफिक अथॉरिटी नहीं, कोई डिफरेंशिएशन रोल नहीं है, एवरीबडी इज वन एंड द सेम. और जब भी कम्युनल वायलेंस होता है तो इट्स यूजुअली होर्ड ओनली, दैट इज वन undifferentiated mass of people attacks the other undifferentiated mass of people. There is no specific target. और कोई लीडर ऐसा नहीं होता वहां पे कि जैसे कि एक वॉर होता है और एक कम्युनल वायलेंस है. वॉर में देयर इज ए सेनापति, and then there are foot soldiers, and the senapati will be directing the foot soldiers to attack. But here in horde there is no leader, nothing, but the group attacks the other group. Are you getting this? सोसाइटस में, क्योंकि कॉमन सेंस आप ये सोचो कि जो एक ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल एक साथ रह रहे हैं वो ऐसा तो है नहीं कि कहीं ऊपर से टपके होंगे, सब आपस के ही मेट वेट करने के बाद आपस के ही कुछ रिलेटिव्स रहे होंगे ना. मींस इमेज इन से thousands of years back when a group of people are living together. So ऐसा तो it's very difficult that somebody might have come from outside. They all might have been a part of the same. और ये जो term है that is promiscuous is also saying that is having indiscriminate sexual relationship with each other. That is promiscuous. So they must be related to each other. They are blood relatives only. That's why they are a part of the group. The next one is the idea of family. Or family, marriage, decent, everything will be in this part only. So this idea of family, Morgan actually suggested that there are 15 stages of family that actually would have come up one after the other. And out of these 15 stages, 5 stages are most important. So mainly आप कहीं पे भी देखोगे तो nobody actually mentions the 15 stages. Everybody is talking about the 5 major stages that is highlighted by Morgan. And these 5 stages are First one is consanguineous family. Okay. So he says that this consanguine means same blood. So consanguineous family means here there was group marriage in which brothers and sisters or who were blood relatives, they used to marry with each other. Okay, that is consanguineous marriage. So what might have happened that two, three brothers are there and and they had three sisters. So all will marry with each other and they will give birth to the children who in turn will actually marry or say will live together and will procreate. Now, there was no concept like incest taboo or that kind of thing. It was, that is, consanguineous marriages were very common, just like the animals have it. Okay. So you do not see that the dogs differentiate between who is my sister and so on and so forth. Nothing of that sort is there. In the similar way, humans were also living. And it might sound bit ridiculous to you because we are living as a part of the society which is relatively, as per Morgan, is more evolved. जहाँ पे ये laws हमने खुद create किए कि ये गलत है. There are biological reasons for it and there are some cultural reasons for it. Okay, but we created this law. But initially there would have been a society जहाँ पे ऐसा law नहीं होगा. And that is what he is imagining, that this is when the culture would have initially started forming. Okay. So in that case, the first kind of family would have been this. Brothers, sisters mating with each other, group marriages. And then it evolved to what is called as Punaluan family. Now, what is this Punaluan family? Here, he says that group marriages exist. But in this group marriages, brothers and sisters will not be mating with each other. Instead, a group of men, maybe a group of brothers, say 5 bhai hain, they will marry another group of women belonging to different groups. So a group of men, that is 5 bhai hain, 5 behnon se shaadi karenge. But they are not related to each other. They are part of different groups. Okay, but the marriage is group. So 5 men marrying 5 women collectively. These 5 men are related to each other as brothers. These 5 women are related to each other as sisters. They will mate with these 5 men, and correspondingly, every man and the woman has to right to establish a sexual intimacy with either of them. Okay, there is no mutual exclusive sexual relationship. But he says that this Punaluan family is the beginning of recognition of incest taboo. That mating with one's relative is wrong. And that's why, since we recognize incest taboo, he says that this would have led to a practice called as, or beginning of a practice called as exogamy. क्योंकि exogamy कैसे आई? Exogamy means marrying outside one's own group. Okay. So exogamy would have come only when we recognize that marrying inside the group is tabooed or prohibited. So then only we will be looking for somebody outside the group. Now this level of exogamy is different. So in some societies, cousin marriages are allowed. For example, in Islam, cousin marriages are allowed. Or in South Indian Hindus, cousin marriages are very common or very much allowed. There is no taboo related to it. However, in North Indian Hindus, cousin marriage so dur ki baat hai, you cannot marry in the 4 gotras. That is 4 gotras, that is gotra of mother, father, grandmother and maternal grandmother, dadi or nani. ये 4 गोत्र में आप शादी नहीं कर सकते. And there is a further point in which that in these 4 goths, you should not have any common ancestor for 5 generations. Okay, 5 generation mein there should not be any common ancestor, and that is the criteria that has to be established before pairing the matches. But kuch societies mein cousin marriages are allowed. For example, among South Indian Hindus, there is nothing called a gotra system, gotra exogamy or nothing like that is there. In fact, in North, there is village exogamy also. Okay, so you cannot even marry in the same village, because usually what is actually believed that villages are established by the people who are related to each other. तो हमारे उधर जैसे कि आई एम कमिंग फ्रॉम नॉर्थ इंडिया ओनली, तो जैसे हमारे गांव में उधर कोई अगर किसी के घर में कोई दामाद आता है तो वो ऐसे बोलते हैं कि गांव का पहुना आया है, दैट इज गांव का दामाद होता है. इट्स नॉट द सन इन लॉ ऑफ ए पर्टिकुलर फैमिली, but son-in-law of an entire village, he is referred to as that. Okay, so that is village exogamy is also necessary. Marrying in a particular same village also is considered to be incestuous in nature. Okay, so he says that once we recognize incest taboo, then only the practice of exogamy would have actually begun. And he says that this would have begun with the establishment of Punaluan families. Okay, then the third he says is Sindasmian family. Now, what is this Sindasmian family? He says that group marriages practices was actually abolished here, and single pairs would have started to live with each other. So a man would have started to live with a woman, or single pair bonds would have started to develop. However, it was more like an experimental mechanism. क्योंकि और दूसरा, it is more because of rise of female in the authority. But here he says that although man and woman, they were actually living as a couple, but they were not sexually restricted only to one another. A man can have multiple sexual relationship outside the marriage, extramarital affairs. So is the case with the woman. पर ये बनाया क्यों गया फिर? तो बोलते हैं कि irrespective of say who is actually mating with the woman, or who is actually, woman can have multiple sexual partners, but officially legally wedded to one person. A woman किसी के साथ भी sexual relationship establish करे, every boy or girl that woman gives birth to will be considered as the legitimate child of the couple only, irrespective of किसके साथ mating करके वो बच्चा हुआ है, doesn't matter. It will be considered as a legitimate child, and that is the beginning of private property. And that is when the society had to come up with a particular kind of mechanism to establish clear-cut parentage. तो उन्होंने ऐसा किया कि एक husband wife को identify कर लिया, but कोई restriction नहीं रखा कि any man can have multiple sexual partners, woman can have multiple sexual partners, but any boy or girl that will be given birth to will be considered as a legitimate offspring of the couple itself. Okay, and that is what is called as Sindasmian family. Single mother, kind of a proto-monogamous relation. Proto-monogamous, not exactly the kind of monogamy that we see. क्योंकि यहाँ पे monogamy में what we see is mutual exclusive sexual relationship is also there. But here it was not there. Just to ensure that कि parentage clear हो जाए. Okay, irrespective of who the father is. Next is polygynous marriages. And here he says कि polygynous क्यों? He says because of the rise in authority of men. जब men की authority rise होती है, तो and उस केस में it becomes, and देखो parentage का issue कब आएगा कि अगर woman is having multiple partners, but parentage issue does not comes when men is having multiple partners, because it is very much clear who is the mother of the child, and it is also clear that who is the father of the child, because there is a single man and multiple women as the mates. But parentage issues come when there is a single woman and multiple males. Then you cannot establish who exactly is the father of the child. So as the man rises in the hierarchy, he controls the resources, he controls the economy, and he controls the art of subsistence. There will be beginning of polygynous relations. Okay, one man with multiple wives. पर इसने ये बात बहुत अच्छी बताई कि that if the society is practicing polygyny, it is not necessary that everybody will be polygynous. अब इसके ऊपर will be studying in marriage, just to tell you a basic calculation, mathematics के basis पे समझते हैं कि polygyny क्यों फायदेमंद है. Why certain societies and even women also prefer polygyny. बहुत सारी societies में जहां polygyny prevalent है, women by consensus accept polygyny. Why is it the case? It actually is based on resource availability. Okay, I already told you कि हमारा ultimate aim क्या है? Survival. And survival is by ensuring my life and also ensuring the life of my children. और men और women में ये behavior बहुत different है. Survival behaviors are different. So men, as I have already told you, कि men are more expendables while compared to women. So men की reproductive success किसमें है? Reproductive success of men is by producing as many children as possible, because a single man can impregnate multiple women, and that's why reproductive success of a man is to have as many children as possible. Okay. While women have a reproductive limitation, she cannot produce as many children as she wants. Okay, because she has to bear the child, and every childbirth is a kind of loss to her body. She has to spend a part of her body in order to give birth to a child. So women का reproductive success किसमें है? To make sure that the children that she gives birth to, they survive till the age of reproduction. क्योंकि उसी में reproductive success, अगर वो बच्चे जी गए और reproduce कर रहे हैं आगे जाके, that means she is reproductively successful. But a man will try to have as many children as possible, because that will ensure that majority of them will survive and they will give birth, and that is how and that is actually determining the behavior of men and women. Yeah, anthropologically, so we actually label the men as the one who do not have any kind of loyalty, isn't it? So there is a character certificate given to men that they do not stick to a woman, and this is a evolutionary programmed behavior of men, that they cannot stick to a woman because of the reproductive success is ensured by having multiple sexual partners. Compared to the women are more loyal to a person. Why? Because their reproductive success is when there is somebody there to provide and protect. Okay. अब इस केस में in a society, imagine if there is a man who controls the resources which is necessary for the children to live and survive, to grow. उसके पास बहुत ज्यादा resource पे control है. So then he can afford to have multiple wives, isn't it? And women will also have no problem, because that man is able to provide and protect. Okay. तो ऐसी कई societies में जहां पे unequal distribution of resources होगा. Okay, there is a probability the man with higher amount of resource can afford to have multiple wives. But there is a limitation. Why everybody cannot have polygynous marriages? Suppose करो कि एक आदमी के पास 500 crores है. Imagine. Okay. And there is a man with 100 crores. Now, अगर इस एक आदमी को एक बच्चे को पालने के लिए से 100 crore रुपए की जरूरत है, तो this person can afford to have only one wife, right? But as per this logic, this person can have multiple wives, 5 wives. क्योंकि अगर 100 crore वाले बंदे के पास एक wife हो सकती है, तो this 500 crore person can have 5 wives. But इस केस में he will not have 5 wives. Why? Because there is a kind of threshold. जैसे ही इसके पास 5वीं wife आएगी, तो every one of the wife will be ensured for 100 crores of wealth. And that equates the equation with this person only. So it would be better for the woman to go with a single person in a monogamous relationship with 100 crore wealth, rather than going with a person with 500 crore wealth having 4 other co-wives. क्योंकि per person to per woman तो उसके पास 100 crore ही आ रहा है. Are you getting this? So there is a kind of threshold that has to be achieved. Uske beyond they cannot have multiple wives. So that is why not everybody will be having polygynous relation in the society. अगर उसके पास थोड़ा extra wealth है and having multiple wife, he is able to ensure that each of the women gets some extra resource as compared to the one who is actually engaging in a monogamous relationship, then only the woman will prefer to have a polygynous relation. Are you getting this? कि अगर per woman को यहाँ पे 150 crore 200 crore मिल रहा होता, तब तक she will be preferring to marry this person. Else there is no point of marrying this person, because he is not providing any extra resource or privileges to that woman. Okay. So coming back to polygynous, here he is saying that कि जैसे जैसे men rise करेंगे, they will start controlling the resources. Hereby, they will ensure their reproductive success having multiple wives. And that is the beginning of polygynous relationship. And one man with multiple wives, and the wives have only duty of progenesis, that is reproduction. Okay. And इससे दोनों के लिए win-win situation है. The woman is married to a person who is having resources. He will provide and protect their children. And man is having multiple wives who will have multiple children. His reproductive success is also ensured. Win-win situation for both. Okay. Gradually, as the society evolves, the marriage will progress to monogamy. Okay, one man having a mutually exclusive sexual relationship with one woman. And it is more related to what he says, development of a value system that will be created in civilization. एक वैल्यू सिस्टम, एक मॉरल सिस्टम क्रिएट होता है जिसमें मोनोगेमस विल बी कंसिडर्ड टू बी ए मोर इवॉल्व, मोर वैल्यूड कस्टम as compared to polygynous or say other forms of marriages. Okay, अब इसीलिए आप देखोगे that the moment the women they are becoming economically independent, जैसे जैसे उनके पास जॉब आ रही है, इकोनॉमिक इंडिपेंडेंस आ रही है, in that case they are staying away from the marriage because they do not need the man to provide and protect. Two say institutions have come up. One is they are earning for themselves and they are providing for themselves, and second, they are actually having police and various other institutions to protect them. And that's why dono role of the men has been taken away. There is nothing to provide and protect that is offered by men. And in such cases, what you will see is women moving away from the marriage, and rather they prefer to go for surrogate or single motherhood also. Okay, reproductive success ही तो चाहिए. Why to engage into a compulsory relationship that would last long, or say that would exist for multiple years, and they have to take up the burden of the family, सास और इन सब का burden लेना क्यों लेना है? पैसे तो आप कमा रहे हैं और प्रोटेक्शन के लिए पुलिस है, so I don't need anyone. And then all you need is a sperm from the sperm bank, and which can be artificially inseminated or fertilized, and then the woman can become a mother without even getting married. Okay, and that's why there is the shift away from the marriage towards live-in relationship or temporary relationship, which can be easily entered and exited as one desires. No compulsions there. Okay, so these are the types of the families that he talks about: consanguineous, Punaluan, Syndasmian, polygynous, and monogamous families. Okay, now he says that this consanguineous family is associated with lower savagery stage. Punaluan is associated with middle and upper savagery. Okay. Then this Syndasmian is associated with all stages of barbarism. That is lower, middle, upper, all stages of barbarism are associated with Syndasmian. Then polygamous and monogamous are associated with civilization. The beginning of civilization is polygynous, and then the later evolved form of civilization is when monogamous value system or monogamous marriages will be coming up. So consanguineous with lower savagery, Punaluan with middle and upper savagery, Syndasmian with all the stages of barbarism, and polygynous and monogamy with civilization. So this is the basic idea of family that was given by Morgan. And similarly, he explained the evolution of descent. Descent is from whom we trace our origin. So he says that the descent evolved from promiscuity. Promiscuity means जब कोई sexual morality नहीं थी, and that was indeterminate parentage, कोई identify भी नहीं करता था who my father is, who my mother is. A collective group of men will be called as father, a collective group of women will be called as mother. That is promiscuity. And when this value system had to change, the first form of descent that would have come is matrilineal, because it was clearly established that which woman has given birth to a child, as compared to establish who was the father of that child. Okay, and that's why the first form of clear-cut established parentage would have come from the mother side, that is matrilineal. But gradually, due to rise of men in the hierarchy, the descent and change of the marital rules, the descent evolved to patrilineal. Okay. Now, एक और theory है इसके ऊपर, बहुत अच्छी interesting story है. And that story is कि why matrilineal descent would have come before patrilineal. It is said that the initial societies, as we have moved from hunting gathering to agriculture, agriculture would have been controlled by women. There is a hypothesis regarding this. Agriculture की discovery भी women ने की होगी, and that's why agriculture was controlled by women. कैसे? Because women were gatherers, and since women were gatherers, actually they would have thrown the seeds of certain fruits or something like that in certain places, and they would have been able to discover that these seeds that were thrown by us or our family in these places have now erupted into new trees. And that is how they would have discovered that these new trees could have come up like this. आप इनकी seeds को plant करो and then gradually they will develop into new trees altogether. And that is the technique of agriculture would have been first discovered by women. And since they were the ones who discovered this technique, they would have controlled agriculture also initially. And that is where the women would have controlled the economy of agriculture initially. And that's why matrilineal descent. कि जिसका पैसा है वो pass करेगा. And that's why mother's descent would have been more important. But gradually, as the men started to take over the economy, they started to control the economy, the power shifted from women to men, and hence the descent also shifted from women to men's side. And that is an alternative hypothesis given by Morgan for shift from promiscuity to matrilineal descent. Okay. Now, another idea that he talks about in this book, Ancient Society, is the idea of germs. If you remember, psychic unity of mankind was the idea that was given by, or actually used by Tylor. It was given actually by Adolf Bastian, a German scholar. So Tylor used it to explain why similarities of culture will happen, or why culture in every society or every group will follow the same path of progress. उनकी trajectory of development will be same. अब इसको भी कुछ explain करना था कि कैसे every culture will be moving in the same direction or unilinear fashion में move करेगा. So he had to give some reason that why every society will follow the same path, and he says this is because of a term what he calls as germs of thoughts, or the term germs. तो बोले कि there is some kind of inherent ability to cognition or ability to think that is present in every human being. And inherent means it is present by birth. Okay. So these germs, they were inherent in every human being, even from the past or whenever they were born. And that is why and these germs are responsible for creating institutions like family, marriage, politics, religion, etc. जितने भी institution create किए गए, ये germs of thought ने create किए, क्योंकि ये human में मतलब जैसे कि कुछ एक by birth ये कुछ present था. मतलब what is this? तो he is trying to say that कि this is a tendency to live socially. Social group में रहने की tendency human में by birth है. And that is why, due to this tendency of living in social group, आप सोचो क्यों ऐसे by birth है? Because human baby, can there be any baby which can actually survive when he is or she is not a part of the social group? It is not possible at all, because human baby is the most vulnerable species on earth. Any other species, ऐसा नहीं है कि immediate उसके parents की death हो जाए और वो survive ना कर पाए. But in case of human baby, he cannot survive, she cannot survive even for a single hour or 2 hours alone if she is left or he is left alone. अगर mother या father या कोई ना हो. It's not possible. Dogs can do that. Various other animals can do that. But that is not possible with the case of human. So that means the tendency to live social is inherent in human. Okay. And due to this tendency of living social, that is what he is calling as the germs of thought. We actually created or had a tendency to create those institutions that would enforce or stabilize our social life. और इसीलिए हमने ये सब बनाना शुरू किया. And as these germs of thought progressed, so the social institution will also progress from one type of family to another type of family, and so on and so forth, and from one type of religion to another type of religion, so on and so forth, from one type of marriage and to another type of marriage. So, लेकिन ये जो tendency to live social is inherent in us. and due to which we actually had a tendency to create family-like institutions, religion-like institution, economy, or anything that would actually reinforce or ensure that we are able to live in a social setup. Because without living socially, there is no chance of humans surviving. So we as a human became the most dominant species of Earth, not because we were very intelligent. That is the most absurd answer. इंटेलिजेंस का कोई वैल्यू नहीं थी अगर हमारे पास सोशल ग्रुप नहीं होता. सोशल ग्रुप की वजह से हम उस इंटेलिजेंस को यूज कर पाए. फॉर एग्जाम्पल व्हेन वी यूज्ड टू हंट लाइक बिग एनिमल्स, तो कैसे हंट करते थे? A man would be carrying a mashal of fire, okay, a wooden log with fire, and he would run behind a particular animal, say elephant or a giraffe, उसको मारना है, या horse उसको मारना है, तो उसके पीछे fire का log लेके दौड़ेगा, and he will direct the direction of that animal towards a pit that they have dug in the forest, and eventually that animal falls in the pit. Multiple men, then they will kill them collectively, kill that animal collectively. They will take out the body and they will consume. But ये single आदमी के बस की बात कभी थी ही नहीं. It was not possible at all. So it's the social life that has given us the power to dominate over Earth. And that's why he says these germs were already there in the minds of the people. And due to these germs, we created these social institutions, which eventually progressed as the knowledge increased. जैसे जैसे हमारी नॉलेज बढ़ती गई, वैसे वैसे ये सोशल इंस्टीट्यूशंस भी इवॉल्व होते गए. बट इनिशियल क्रिएशन हमारे दिमाग में एक फितूर था सोशल रहने का, एंड दैट्स व्हाई वी क्रिएटेड इट. So this is the basic idea of Morgan. First one is kinship terminology. Then the second is ancient society, in which he talks about 4 criteria. Idea of technology, based on which he classified the cultures of the world into 7 categories: lower, middle, upper savagery, lower, middle, upper barbarism, civilization. Then idea of government, societas to civitas, that is kin-based relations to territorial-based relations. And then finally idea of family, which actually was changed from one form to other based on the change or dominance of men, based on rise of private property, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that is it for today. We'll continue from this point in the next class, and we'll try to finish the first theory, and we'll begin the answer writing from tomorrow. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you so much.